Hello, everyone. This is Ed Brenniger, and welcome to the Eddy Network podcast. My guest today is Florian Stummer, and Florian is from Austria, one of my favorite places. And I'm glad that you're here, and we have a lot to talk about, many things to talk about. This may go for a long time, so go get your cup of coffee and kick your shoes off and get comfortable. Because no, I'm joking. But this will be an interesting conversation today. And welcome, Florian. I'm glad you're here. Tell us about where you live and what is your current work? What is your current work?
First of all, Eddie, thanks a lot for having me. I'm a great admirer of your work because it brings together so many things that really interest me and where I find myself in. So right now, I'm working at the Medical University of Vienna as head of telemedicine development. And of course, as a side hustle, research side hustle, it's my polymathic research with among my students. And so actually I'm living right in between Vienna and Munich, but most of the time I'm in Vienna. And yeah, it's actually a place where West and East are merged perfectly together with all the cultures and levels and, history going on. Yeah.
I've spent 5 weeks in 2 trips in Vienna back in 2017, 2018. And
lovely.
And so I would be there for 2 weeks on one trip and 3 weeks on another. And I wasn't a tourist. So I rented an Airbnb or apartment, and I lived where other Viennese lived, and would go to the coffee shops. And you're saying about this difference that is the mixture of East and West, Eastern Europe and Western Europe. It's kind of the portal where those two worlds cross and intermingle. And I was sitting in a coffee shop, and there was this group of high school students, and they had a teacher and a parent with them. And I'm watching how animated they were and how much fun they were having. And I asked one of the adults, "Where are you all from?" And they said, "Oh, we're from Romania." And I thought that changed my whole perception of Romania as a result. That there is something beautiful and good going on in Romania. Not that there was not something going on, but I just had never seen it before. And so that's one of my strong memories of Vienna.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because it really, most of the time, it feels like, it's the city of the Kaiser, and it's like the Danube, like a big, the stream still connects everything. And in my younger years, I always was like, there was this science fiction show in the 90s called Babylon 5 about a space station somewhere, and Vienna somehow felt always, when I hopped out at the main train station in Vienna, I always felt like, it's like Babylon 5, all the faces, all the smells, all the different languages, and a real melting pot. So unbelievable. Yeah, absolutely.
It is
nice to hear. Yeah.
And where did you grow up?
Well, actually, I grew up in Upper Austria, which is kind of just 2 hours car hours away of Vienna, to the west. So it's more like I grew up near the Danube River, and my ancestors, they were rafters. So most of the time, I mean, I'm the 8th generation, so most of them were traveling down the river, selling goods, selling wood, and then riding back on their horses. So there was always this connection of never being or belonging somewhere really, always being some kind on the travel, always picking up new ideas, always reinventing or have to be innovative to solve problems. So not much like a farmer sitting and checking and waiting that the crop grows. So my family, it was mostly like generating knowledge transfer, especially as you mentioned, East and West. many different languages, many different ideas. So yeah, this was kind of my family. My grandmother was one of the first pharmacists in Austria, female pharmacists.
Mhm.
And so knowledge generation, knowledge transfer, together with part of the family coming from Hungary, uh, quite a big a melange, as we say in Austria for a good coffee, which is
Yes.
finely
Well,
mixed there, melange. So I feel myself somehow, yeah, cultural and epigenetical melange of mid Europe. So yeah, I grew up near the Danube River and went to school in this tiny village. Well, and then was the time that I have, like every young man has to prove himself and leave for the world to change. So I became a journalist, and then I was off to Seattle for a couple of years, and then came back via London back to Austria. Yeah.
and have you proven yourself yet?
Sorry.
Have you proven yourself yet? You
Well,
young man.
actually, as a polymath, the imposter syndrome still going on. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Oh well, that's an excellent answer. That's an excellent answer.
Well, but
One of my guests last year on the podcast, we started by talking about the imposter syndrome, and she said she had heard a speaker that had recently said, if you're not experiencing imposter syndrome, then you're not trying to improve yourself.
yes, that's a wonderful one.
Isn't that a great attitude? Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I mostly go with this Jewish proverb about you are born and then you have the rest of your life to become a human being.
I've heard that before, and I like that.
I really like that one. I really like that one because it really covers everything on the journey. And yeah, and somehow I feel like when I'm reading about the stuff my ancestors did and how they on the stream through life moved themselves, what they did so that I can be here. It's highly interesting. And so I try to fill my gap or use my skills on the one side to improve and help and bring everything around me up as well, not only myself, because then it's not fun, it doesn't make any sense for me, but also try to be in line with the humanistic and this ad fontes, back to the roots, back to the sources, not being getting away with the blinders that culture and media and ideas put on you. Just always step back, go back to the sources and see what was the most basic thing they wrote back in Greece, back in Rome, back in the Renaissance 1,000 years ago, and might they be still true? This is something that well, it's my touchstone.
Yeah, I understand that. You used a term which I've heard before. I mean, we've been talking. I mean, we're talking about Western Europe, Eastern Europe, but you used the
Yeah.
term Middle Europe.
Yes.
Could you explain what that is? Because I know that there are other people who would like to hear because they hear that term. It gets used a lot when, big newscasts talk about Europe. Oh, and this is Middle Europe. It's kind of a definition. So what is that? What does that mean?
Well, it's like Middle Earth, but with better food and better clothes. No, just kidding. Middle Europe can be understood as part of the German-speaking countries. And down, as you say, Hungary and Romania. So really, this old kind of monarchy thing.
Okay.
So as a core, as a geographical, because culturally it was always intermixed.
So it'd be that kind of narrow, not so narrow, but a band of territory between, say, Western Germany, Western Europe, France, and Italy, and then
Yes.
you know
Yes.
the
Oh, to put it easily, every country or the part of countries that are not connected to the Middle Sea or the Atlantic,
yes.
or that, so the pure continent, if you want.
That's fascinating because I've met people from north of where you are and from
Mm.
countries up there, and it is fascinating to talk with them because their perception of things is different. And it's not necessarily bad or good, it's just different and it's interesting.
Yes.
And as a polymath, that's very interesting to be able to engage with all these different people and to kind of
Yes.
grasp hold of their perception of things. And so let's talk a little bit about polymathy and how what's your perception of this? I mean, how did you come to have an interest in this, and where did you first hear about it? Because I've had a number of people on here are experts in this.
The first time I've heard about what was it wasn't like in the sense of polymathy, like in the English term definition. It was more like from the Italian uomo universale, from the Renaissance, because of course, like mid Europe also includes North Italy, and when you go Milano, Firenze, there you have the cradle of polymathy.
Yes.
But in German, it's more like the Universalmensch or Universalgelehrter. But it's a bit tricky term because it was used for a long time as an outstanding title for someone who was able to do a lot of things, not like the master of the jack of all trades, but more like someone who he really has an understanding of something. But this faded with when I say Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
First World War, Second World War, and then we had this major rebuilding of the whole Europe, and putting and how can I put it? Putting a framework over it, a mold over it, so that everything is in nice pieces and nice boxes. And then suddenly it became a somehow negatively connotated term. It was like more for the nosy ones, for the snobbish ones, for privateers who just lived by heritage and a lot of money they got from somewhere, and suddenly it faded. And so calling yourself in German-speaking countries polymath or Universalmensch is problematic, because it looks like you are bragging. It's okay if someone else says it about you, but you can't say it about yourself. So when I started to wrap my head around it, it was, and I think it has something to do with, Kant and this reflection of yourself, criticizing yourself, being correct in definitions and terms and stuff like that. So I put a bit of fun out of the whole thing. And when I stumbled over polymathy, it is neutral, or polydisciplinary. It's neutral. There is no real pendant to it in the German language. And so I decided, okay, then let's call it polymath. And who doesn't know, I explain it to. And who knows, well, it's okay anyway. So transferring this term and this definition is still, for German-speaking polymath, a problem. We haven't built a narrative around it right now. We don't have a myth around it. We had a myth, but it comes from Italy. But right now, everything is in specialization and hyper specialization. So right now we are playing, or culturally we are playing around with the term generalist, but doesn't really, well,
Are you familiar with Kenneth Mickelson's neo-generalist idea?
Yes. Yes.
That's where he's taken it, and it's different than polymath.
Yes. 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 And this is one of the major issues. This language barrier, definition barrier, and so many people talking about so different things when they talk about, for many it doesn't feel right. And I found that, like Angela Catalessa always points on it, it is really like there are so many people around who feel it, who feel that they can do much more, that they have much more skills, but it can't come out. They can't tell it anyone, because then it's like bragging. And you see it in the faces of the people when they ask you, what are you doing? And then you come up with more than three things. It's like they shut off and they, of course, how can someone do that?
It is an interesting thing. And my association with it early on was these people are the geniuses in society. We in America, we call them eggheads. You know, they live in their heads. They're very smart. They maybe not very practical in many of them, but you know, they can talk about things at a highly theoretical level. That was my perception of it, the way it had been
Yeah.
kind of portrayed to me over the course of my lifetime. Then Barbara Klebe showed up and invited me into her polymath group, and I learned a whole lot of other things. I realized it's and she uses that phrase, many learnings. That's the way she defines it. You know, the person who's learning lots of different things in lots of different areas, which I like that. I prefer that. And I know people who have no advanced degrees. They don't even have a college degree, and they are very polymathic in the way they live their lives. And they are the people that I bond with, you know, because their polymathic expression is practical. It's really practical, and I really like that.
That's I mean, by the way, Barbara is the epitome of bringing this forward in metaphors, in a clearness, and that so many. Even when I read it, after the first 20 pages, I had tears in my eyes because it very then was so clear what I am, and it is okay to be like that. It is not wrong. Yeah, it was fantastic what she did. Absolutely fantastic. And I'm absolutely on your side. The more I think about it, and right now I'm really together with Angela and Barry James, we are diving deeper and deeper in analyzing, and Xenia Semmelweber, we're really diving deeper in analyzing, and we come up with that it is not about the academic titles and degrees you color yourself with, or maybe you hide behind. Yeah, there are so many people outside who are polymathic, but don't call it. They live it, and they don't need it for. I mean, have a look at what was it recently that I saw? People rebuilding or building their houses in areas where it gets hotter and hotter, and they start to reinvent this whole living underground anew. And they don't have any plans, and they don't have money, and they have resources, so they really start like from scratch, and they come up with so many new good ideas. Far from architectural planning or something, and they still work. So I think it's a bit too simple to say when you have 3 degrees you're a polymath. No, because just check Wikipedia or the list of Renaissance people. It's always about Renaissance men, not about Renaissance women.
Right.
How many women solve problems in everyday lives with 3 children or more, and everything, and come up with solutions no one ever thought about? Yeah. So I think it's a bit too simple to just, we nailed 3 degrees on the wall and then you're a polymath. It makes no sense. It has to be lived.
That's exactly right. And we have a lot of people here in the States who want to live off the grid, and they homestead and things like that. So, and in order to do that, you have to learn how to do all kinds of things. You have to learn how to build a house from scratch. You have to learn how to dig well. You have to learn how to, all kinds of things. You have to learn how to raise cattle and chickens, and all those things are things you have to go learn and become proficient in to survive. If that's what you want to do.
I think for polymaths, it's more like this unbreakable curiosity.
Yeah.
And this complete ignorance regarding mistakes or failure. They are none. They are just learning curves.
That's exactly right.
And it's an ignorant thing.
The only failure is quitting. The only failure is quitting.
Yes, absolutely. I see this with my daughter, Valentina. She's 6.5 now. One mistake after another, but she doesn't care because it's fun for her. And she finally, she transformed, and she understood that there is no mistake. There can't be a mistake, because why should there be a mistake if she doesn't know? It's in her head. It's just curiosity, and the rest is fun, and there is no fear. And it's so fantastic to see this, how she in her world, her perspective. And this is another thing that I more and more think about, not only this separation of academic versus real life. It's everything is real life, but the perspective we live our lives in right now. If you say, let's put it like this: when you grow up, you look up because you have to look up, because first you lie down, look up because you lie in the cradle. After the cradle, you start moving around and you look up because you see feet, and somewhere up where on the feet is mom and dad. Then you look up when you're breastfed in the face of your mother. Then you get taller, you run around, you look up, 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 up. And then suddenly when your growth stops, yeah, there is a certain phase where you look right perspectively in line. You study, and then you get your first job, and then you have your first child in your hands. And then you start looking down on the face of the child. And then you sit on your desk and your table and you look down again. And so then you have to check, where is the tiny one? Oh goodness, where is it running away? Has it dropped somewhere? You're looking down. Then you get a dog. You have to check where the dog is. You start looking down. You have to check the crops. And so somehow we really get this art fork life, always having our nose on the ground, but no one looks up anymore until you lie in bed very ill, or you lie on a deathbed. Then you look up once more, and you get buried, funnily enough, with the face up. So, like to close the circle in some way.
Yeah.
But by not looking up anymore, I mean, even tougher right now, we even have now a second filter like the internet and like the smartphone that prevents us of seeing reality, an idealized abstract of what reality could be.
Yep.
So we are not even looking at the soil anymore, but at a version of the soil that someone invented. And now the next step is AI-generated versions of reality that we see in images and pictures on the smartphone. I mean, how much more we can leave ourselves and the connection to the real world. It's fantastic on the one hand to see how we, as a human being, can completely neglect and forget about reality. And that's, and on the other hand, it's shocking. And that's all why I tell my students when they come up, yeah, there is a software for this, or there's a software for that. I say, leave it, take it, go to the coffee shop, take 2 or 3 newspapers and read the same article or the same topic about the 3 articles, how they are described, and then think about it. What is wrong in there? Why does one newspaper say A, the other focuses on B, and the third one on C? Then you have the first steps on getting new knowledge. Then you get an idea of critical thinking. But you know what I mean? It's an absurdism that comes up here, perverted.
Well, I think these are patterns of thinking or patterns of behavior that emerge. And when they emerge, they're become very popular and become dominant until they become exhausted from not being able to solve all the problems. So I think
Yes.
kind of the Enlightenment idea of empirical data, proving everything and being and that all knowledge begins with your own perceptions of reality. All of that no longer really works very well, because you may perceive that our conversation is real when this is really just an AI doing this conversation. No, I'm not serious, people. But you see, that's what happens. And I think what we've been moving through, and this is a polymathic thing, is the
Yes.
growth of what is called phenomenology, which is how do we embody knowledge? How do we embody our exploration of the world through our bodies? And so we are experiencing things through our senses, and we smell things,
Yes.
we hear things, and we taste things, and we touch things, and that's knowledge, just like what is on the screen. And so it's really interesting that people have been telling us this. There's a Finnish architect named Polymathy, and he wrote a book called The Eyes of the Skin.
Okay.
And in this book, he criticizes the visual sense as the least dependable sense that we have, and that the skin as a sensory organ is the most dependable.
Yes.
It's really,
Yes.
it's a fascinating little book, The Eyes of the Skin. So if you engage with that, if you allow yourself to become engaged with the world at the level of your sensory experience, and at the same time you're analyzing, what is it that I'm really experiencing? What is it I'm seeing? All of a sudden, all these different fields of interest begin to pop up. And you may never have thought of yourself as polymath, but all of a sudden, you're going to start practicing polymathic behavior because you want to connect all these different fields together to make some sense of the world that you were experiencing.
And that's brilliant that you bring this up, because lately I saw a documentation about Michelangelo and Leonardo, and they all Leonardo is famous for his Atlantis, for his
Right,
books. He was
right,
always carrying out his notebooks, but
right.
everyone did this back then. Everyone did this back then. Just these are the ones who still somehow made it up now in our times now. But what they did, like children, they went out, they observed, they imitated, they went back, they drawed it, they drawn it, they wrote it, they calculated or tried to calculate it, tried to make sense of the world around them. Then they went back to the craft shops, and then they started to reinvent, to remodel what they've seen, what they observed. They just took their eyes, as you said, their skin and all their senses, and then just experimented, because there was no wrong, because everyone was like, oh, here comes Leonardo, who, by the way, seemed to be a wonderful dancer in super physical shape, and even invented instruments to make music, because he was such a festive guy, and he was a party tiger, a party lion.
Yeah.
So that was like this that time, and no one was asking you allowed or not allowed. And that's fantastic things, because this play-based learning, this really childlike re-envisioning the world, is I think it will be the most crucial skill in the coming years.
I agree with you. I watched a video that you did with Angela Gotalasa about
Mm.
parenting. And
Yeah,
I found it very fascinating
thank
because,
you.
uh, well, I'm a parent, but my children are grown and they're out of the house. But you all were presenting ideas about parenting, which I thought were very valuable for other people to hear. And I know a lot of parents, and I know a lot of young families in their 30s, 20s, and 30s. They have children, and it's a challenging. So let's talk about parenting from the perspective of the polymath and how a polymath treats their children or raises their children, or what is the language that we use. So kind of give us an idea of what you've been thinking about since you're a father.
Um, well, um, where do I start? I couldn't imagine to become a father in my 30s or in
Mm-hmm.
my 20s. I was already 40 when well hit the ground running, because she's always running. No, it was like, it was like kind of the mid of my life where she popped up. And by that, I already had so much, I had a better understanding of who I am, what I am. I had an understanding that I am polymath, and that it is okay to approach the whole parenting thing from a complete new perspective. So I think it has a lot to do of our perception in the life phases we are in. When I'm in my 20s, I still have all these wonderful stories of what I could reach, what I will reach if I just work enough or long enough or climb up the corporate ladder, la di da. And then suddenly this mechanism hits in. Mom stays at home with the kids, and dad go for work. And then somehow 10 years are gone. But these are exactly the 10 years that are the most valuable, not only for the child, but everyone knows that, but for me as a parent as well. And one of the first things I skipped completely was like, I try to manipulate or shaping or stuff like that. I really approach the whole parent thing and father thing like, what can I learn from this child? Can I hop back in time and align myself, or maybe heal somehow my inner child that was harmed back then, as it didn't know that it's right or wrong to live this polymathic thing. And there are children around, there are more that are more creative and other that are more focused and concentrated. That's okay, because we as a society need both and more. Yeah?
Right.
But from a natural genetic thing, there are somehow these, yeah, this hunter-gatherers and then the farmer type. And it is okay like that. And I've seen Val just growing up as such a lively and full of energy and ideas. And when I see parents at the playground still, and no, don't do that. No, no, don't touch that. No, no, no. I think I mean, it's so cruel. Um, and I even play games with my daughter. I have absolutely no idea. She invents them while she is playing, and I get my roles, what to be and how to be, and I do it. And funnily enough, I don't feel silly about it, because right in the moment when she does that, it's so full of energy and so full of life, and it's so wonderful to just be back in the state of a child. In the evening, when we are settled and she lies down, it's really like I can't turn on the telly anymore, because there are so many things going on in my head. What did she mean? Why I reacted this or that? So it's really like being a bit older, becoming a father, bit just like after 35 or 36. It was an epiphany for me to re-understand myself and my story. And I think it's like, for many out there who want to try to do polymathic style parenting, really get rid of every blender, everything other people say. Really just listen to your inner child and find the hot spots you weren't able to live, but not as a victim, because yeah, granddad was a grumpy man, and my grandmother always does that, or my father didn't have time for me. That's all victim thinking. We don't need victims or praise or whatsoever. No, just take it as it is. It's a big gift and present you get from life, that you can be a child again. So where's the problem? Do it. Yeah. And
I I understand that very well, and I approach this from the flip side of that coin, where you wanted to be like the child. I decided when my oldest was about 11 or 12 and my youngest was about 5, I decided I was going to start to treat them as adults.
yeah,
So instead of answering their questions, I'm going to engage in conversation with them so that they can answer their questions, so they can learn to do that, so they can be more independent. And they're very independent of me now. There's no sense that dad is the one who dictates what they think, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And it's very interesting because it has allowed our relationships as they've grown into their 30s to be very equal. You know, we're very close and we are equal, and we can talk to each other in a way that I see other people not being able to talk to their children. You know, where their children is they're kind of they're watching them from the sidelines. They're watching their children
yes,
from the sidelines, and say, "Well, what was that experience?" And instead of being a part of that, and it's a really interesting thing, because I think that um, how we have been raising children is very much in the industrial method, which is here are the rules and follow the rules. And
yeah.
that system is broken and it's not working. And I think that's one of the reasons why polymathy has kind of grown in interest, because it's a way of approaching the world in such a way that you're going to be drawing all kinds of different information that you're going to put together yourself for how you're going to live your life.
That brings up a wonderful metaphor, Eddie. That's brilliant. because what we lost this simple narrative about how to form a human being or help bringing up a human being. What we have in our society, in our world, is like a blueprint to build the next gear for the big machine.
Yes.
That's what we
That's
have.
really,
Yeah?
that's very accurate.
And what I think that, that's why I love to talk, because while I'm talking, I always have so much ideas. And that's every of my lecture with my students ends up with something else than I have to teach. That's a real problem for the students, but it's good for me because I come up with new ideas. The only thing that I really have a keen eye on is when Well or one of her friends are on this verge of overdoing it when they play, when it becomes tricky or dangerous. But even then, I don't intervene. I just say, just a pause, not a stop, just a pause. And in the pause, let's think it through. Let's think it through the end. What might happen? What could happen? Are there situations in your life, and there is the pattern recognition thing, where the situations in your life or a video you've seen or a movie you've seen where this ended not that well? And then someone comes up with, oh yes, I've seen this in, I don't know, Pippi Langstrumpf or something. That didn't work out back then. Say, yes, so should we try it then again? Even because it didn't work out after all. No, maybe not that way. And then they start to rethink and develop their own pattern to do it, but in another way. And that's the only thing I do. Because idea synthesis, they have by themselves and everything and adaptability.
You're helping them to identify the boundaries of their life.
I want to help and additionally, I want to see them, I want to understand them that there are patterns they already have in their memories, and they just have to check, where have I seen this once? And in how far can it help me solve this problem now? Or in how far is it the antithesis to the problem that I have right on hand? So I have to reinvent everything anew. Just to have, this pole, this flagstone, this flagpole to put your hand on and say, okay, stop. So this is what I know. This is what I remember from a similar situation. This is what I have here. I can test it. I can try it. Oh goodness, it doesn't work out, so I do something else. Just as a security point. I don't have a real word for that.
What you're describing is very analogous to something my grandmother said to me when I was 11, 12 years old. And she had 15 grandchildren. And I know that I am the only one of the grandchildren that she said this to. So this is this carries more weight as a result. She said, you may do anything you want, but do not bring shame to the family name.
Yeah.
And that has been my watchword ever since. Meaning I can go do anything I want. And I have done anything I've wanted. And
sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's been the course of my life. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
This is wonderful because it aligns with, you have to know where you come from.
Yes.
To know why and what you are doing.
That's right.
And more we cut down our heritage and the memories about the past, and there is no past, there's just future, future, future. I love the future. I'm a big fan of the future. But if I don't understand what has already happened and already had gone wrong, why in God's name shall I do the same crap again? I mean, that's not improvement or evolvement or development. That's just machine thinking. Redo the same thing again and again, even if the output is complete mess. And that's what we have right now. Because to be honest, let's take the whole quantification years and the decades of quantification. And of course, there were a wonderful lot of unbelievable inventions around and innovations around. But we have a complete messed up planet and climate. But now they are talking about bringing up and inventing artificial trees. And if bees die, then we have those tiny drones. Honestly,
well,
that doesn't make any sense.
What I see there is that it used to be that we were very connected in our minds, in our communities. And
Mhm.
and then when the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, and then the all these revolutions over the last 300 or 400 years emerged, what happened was all of those connections were broken, and everything was looked at as a discrete thing. And whatever you chose as the discrete thing, which became the centerpiece of your life, became the most important thing. And so you lost this connection. But what I see is that people want, and this particularly is an outcome of COVID, is that people want to be connected, and they want to be in relationships with people. They want to have the
Yes.
conversations with people. And so I think the way we have been for a couple of 100 years is not going to last. And we're going to be moving kind of back into an older way, a more traditional way, but not traditional in the old way. I mean, it'll be a new kind of tradition of where we're able to talk with each other like you and I are talking, and we can do that in a way that builds builds a connection where there's actually a relationship which matters to us.
And exactly, and it's quite well simple. There are 5 areas in my eyes that you just have to keep an eye on. In which form you do it is up to you, because everyone has individual wishes. But there is this social thing. Have a social thing going on in your life. Have some mental thing in your life going on that really puts you in the flow. Have some artistic thing in your life, even if it's photography or drawing, painting, writing, whatsoever. Uh, Keep your body in shape and healthy, and do something for your spirituals, do something for your soul, because that it is doing something together. I mean, the simplest fare for who baked the most wonderful apple cake or apple pie has all of this in it, to be honest. It's such a simple thing, and that's ad fontes, back to the roots. We don't need this on Zoom, and we don't need it digitalized, and we don't need, just make it simple as possible. And from there on, you understand that so many things around are just tools that make your life better or worse.
Would I be correct in saying that what you have been describing is kind of the source of the hope you have for the future?
Uh, yes. The very moment that the youngsters understand that they are really betrayed on a lifetime about the time, the hours they invest into digital world, and that they lose it. Which brings me to the parenting thing again. Valentina loves to play theater and do something with their friends and say, yeah, well, let's have a party. Oh yeah, a party, and I invite my friends. Something very simple. But you know how difficult to bring together 4 girls. No, because the other one has her swim training. No, this weekend is completely cramped. No. So you have to at least 3 weeks in advance. I
Right.
can't remember. I was born in the 90s, half analogous, half digital. And it was like, okay, this afternoon, 3 to 5, somewhere in a coffee shop. Let's meet and do some board games and have some fun. And everyone was there.
Mm.
Um, and there is this thing going on of the Generation Z, I heard, that they want to go back and live their lives a bit like the grandparents, which is funny because I think they already are at this point that they see that's not life, that's not human, and it doesn't make me any better or more happier.
It is fascinating. We're at this juncture in human history, which I think it's more significant than anything in the last 1,000 years. I think it's at that.
Yes, yes. Sometimes I think, because you mentioned future, uh, I had this vision lately, and I thought maybe I have the chance to live it through or see it, that in 2040, 2035, 2040, people are sitting together somewhere in the evening because the people asked somewhere in the 2030s, please, can we shut off the internet after 6 p.m.? Would it be that problem? and that they are just back in sitting together, having fun in the kitchen. And to be honest, the best parties are kitchen parties.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm planning to do with this house that I've just bought. This 100-year-old five-bedroom house. It's got this expansive first floor. I'm going to have people come into my home. We're going to have some refreshments, some food, and we'll just talk, whatever we want to talk about. And there's no agenda, there's nothing planned. It's like the Eddie Network podcast. We just talk about what we want to talk about when we talk about it. And the idea is that this becomes a seed for them to do something similar in the other environments where they, I probably won't be able to do one until the fall, but that's 6 months away. Let's say 6 months from now, I will start doing these things, and we'll see how it goes. And there's a lot of time. I have to get the house finished, putting it together. But it's exciting to me to think of having. Well, let's come back to where we started.
Yes.
My inspiration is the Viennese salon, and where people gather. And we have an art school here, a very prominent art school, and one of the professors there is a friend of mine, and I've spoken to him and says, I'd like to have some of your students come play music in my house. And there might be only 15 or 20 people here, but everybody will play something, and we'll pay this young man or this young woman or maybe two of them, maybe a duo, and they'll come and they'll play some, I don't know, Vivaldi or something, maybe there's an opera singer, they'll sing some Puccini or some Mahler or something, but to create to bring arts into this environment of conversation. And that's something that I want to do more of, because I think what I've found is that when people begin to do something they identify as artistic, then they find things within themselves which have been kind of hidden, tucked away in a closet for too long.
That is true. I mean, Xenia has it with the Viennese Salon every 2 weeks, which works brilliant. There are always someone. Last time I even had one of my students with me who I think is polymath, but I can't say it here, ha ha ha, because so many gente hears it. No, but it was so fascinating to see all these ideas, especially East and West. We have many people from different countries, and then there's always this one topic, as in keynote, and then afterwards it's everyone is gathering around the table, is eating something, as you say, refreshments, and then just talk. And afterwards, every time afterwards I go home, there are new ideas around, and I see the world anew, and then I feel myself looking up again. It's somehow it's funny. And with regards to the arts, it's interesting that everyone says music education, art education, it's vital for children to do and start, and they have to learn, I don't know, the flute or piano between the 6th and 9th age year, and drawing and so forth. And funnily enough, somewhere in high school, they lose it.
Yeah.
It isn't asked for anymore, because there are already jobs like it. Now you have to focus to become a designer if you want to make it, or you become a mangaka and draw mangas, or you want to be a comic artist. Now you have to start to design. And that's exactly what I mean with the perspective as well. Not only that we stop looking up, we start looking just in one direction. And there again is this meat grinder of oneness. You just have to decide for one thing. And this is absolutely absurd, because through this meat grinder you pop up on the other side like as it is nothing of form, nothing of shape, but you can do one thing in God's name. Who is able to, I mean, what is alive as a human being for if you just can do one thing? A screwdriver can do one thing.
Actually, you can do a lot of things with a screwdriver.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're still a human being and not a
That's right.
screwdriver.
That's right. That's right. Well, I have a piano that's in storage that belonged to my grandparents, and I'm going to get it out of storage and put it in my house, and then I'm going to start taking lessons. That's the one of my other
Do
goals
that.
is to learn how to play the piano.
Do
Start
that.
hearing at the age
There are
of
two or three places in Vienna, and I've seen it in London, where old pianos are standing around,
yeah.
and they are not perfectly trimmed and the
No,
tune and the sound, but that doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
It's even more fascinating to
Yes.
hear it, this deformed sounds, tunes, whatsoever. But it's beautiful because it's real. It's real. And that's the thing.
Yeah, and it's a place of discovery. I mean, you may
Yes.
never master the piano, but you will master your own journey into discovering. I mean, I think of learning how well Bach wrote all his keyboard music. That's way beyond me because but I'm thinking about people like Django Reinhardt on the guitar
Yes.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
how that came out, and Thelonious Monk, the American jazz composer and pianist from the 50s and 60s, and thinking, if you learn how to play it on the piano as they did, maybe not like them, but you learn where the notes are, you begin to learn something about their mind
Yes.
that says, wow, that opens up, that's that polymathic moment of awareness and discovery that takes you into a new dimension of your life.
That's that's fascinating because I have my piano in the kitchen, and it's like always like when I have no ideas. There are always two approaches. One thing is fantasizing. I just play something, and then really my emotions of the whole day, they leave on a wave in a stream of melodies or what comes to my mind. And the other thing is taking only 4 or 5 chords of one of those gods of music,
Yeah.
start with them, and then reinterpret it, dissect it, fragment it, refigure it, and just, and this alone just becomes, when it becomes a flow, then suddenly 2 hours are gone, and you're more relaxed than on Xanax or whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was just playing and doing something. Again, there is this, I read this somewhere, that especially all musicians become that old because the nerve, the ends of the nerves, the fingertips,
Yeah.
always are somehow tickled or activated,
They
and
lose.
this activates the
Yeah.
brain and keeps the brain young because there is always new sensory input.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, it does not work with keyboard typing.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I'm not
because
surprised.
it is only tuck, 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 tuck.
It's
But
not
if you play music, there is so
a
many other
rhythm and
things.
there's no melody.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very. I'm seeking for people who are musicians in particular to come on the podcast because I want to talk about those sort of things. I've been introduced to a composer. I've invited him. He hasn't responded yet, but these are, I think, are really important things. They're not. It's not about entertainment. This is about artistic expression of the human person, and that's
It, I think it's the art, fine arts. And I, for myself, I love to draw and have a good, solid training as an illustrator back in the 2000s. But still, I love to draw with raw charcoal. You
huh,
get dirty.
yeah,
It's such a raw and archaic medium. It's just black and white. It's just light and shadow. And if you turn off the sun, then everything is shadow. And it's like drawing with charcoal is just drawing the shadow, the non-light. And doing this is so simple. And I think the simplicity is one thing that more and more people start to miss, because the world becomes more complex and complex. They want simple things, but they still follow the complexity rules.
Yeah.
And breaking things down again is, I don't know if it is already habitual that they can't do it, or it's a very, it's a tricky thing.
It is fascinating. And I think partly what this does is sets up another time for us to have a conversation. And I think we've certainly not exhausted. We've just touched on a lot of different things today.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe next time we can go deeper into one of the or more of those, because I think there is much to learn from each other, and I really have enjoyed talking with you because your reputation preceded you, and
Good luck.
this would be fantastic, and it has been. How do people connect with you if they want to? What's the best way for that?
Oh, best thing is drop me a line on LinkedIn, or it's on the Medical University of Vienna website. I think there is my email address. So each way is okay. I don't have any problems with that.
Okay, we'll do it that way, and I appreciate you coming on, and thank you for who you are and what you're doing, and um, best wishes to all the work that you do and the effect that you have.
I'm very grateful you had me and that you are doing that, Eddie. It's really such a good thing to know that there is something like this network, just simply talking, listening, observing, and learning. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, I thank you. And I thank you everyone for watching and listening. And if you have a question, put it in the box. Let us know what you're thinking. Appreciate every time that one of you does that. And I will pass it on to Florian when you do. And so thanks again, and we will see you next time here on the Eddie Network podcast. Bye-bye. Yeah.